It almost seems like yesterday when I think back on those events which changed my life so completely. I was, at the time, a student at the University of Hamburg, living with my uncle, the great Professor Otto Leidenberg.
Hey, watch where you're going. You old coot, you're scaring my horses.
They're in my way!
They're horses, and they have to walk in the street. You're a man. You do not.
I'll walk anywhere I want.
Down the middle of the street, Herr Professor.
Yes! Axel!
Good evening, Uncle.
What's that supposed to mean?
Nothing, just...
Professor Leidenbrock, you're late for supper.
Supper this early, Martha?
Early? It's 6:30.
It can't be.
If I'm to run your house on schedule, you have to hold to it. Your nephew Axel is on time and he has classes at the university.
So did I, and I taught them.
Nevertheless, dinner's ready.
No time to eat now. I'm going to my study. Come along, lad.
But...
Up you go. Quickly, my boy.
Oh, he's impossible. I'll send up a tray if you change your stubborn mind.
We will.
We won't.
Good evening, Martha. Have I missed them?
You have indeed, dear Grauben. They've locked themselves in the study. To think, I've cooked all his favorite dishes tonight. It's so inconsiderate.
He's a professor of geology, Martha, not manners, unfortunately.
I told you, Martha, we'll have supper when we're good and ready. Until then, leave us to our work.
It's not you I want to see, it's Axel.
Grauben?
Yes?
My dear little Grauben, Axel and I are in the middle of a most important discussion.
But
Now, run along.
My uncle, Otto Leidenbrock, was well on the road to being an intolerable eccentric. He was professor at the university where he lectured on minerals and was famous for losing his temper. His house on Königstrasse was also home to his housekeeper, Martha, myself, his nephew, and reluctant laboratory assistant, and his 17-year-old goddaughter, Grauben. Ah, Grauben, the most lovely vision a young man could hope to love. A dear, sweet, innocent...
Axel! Pay attention. What is this?
A book?
A book? Is that all? Why, it's a priceless treasure, my boy. It's at least 700 years old.
700 years old?
That's right. I found it this afternoon in an old bookshop. It's the Heimskringla of Snorro Torlsson, the famous Icelandic writer of the 12th century. It is the chronicle of the Norwegian princes who ruled Iceland, without a doubt. One of the most...
As my uncle handed me the book, a piece of parchment slipped out and fell to the floor. The professor's eyes widened with fire.
What's this? Very interesting. These look to be runic letters, written in a different hand than the book.
So?
It's a cryptogram, a code, I'm sure of it, but my eyes...
Give it to me, uncle. I'll make it out. Let's see. Arnesak.
Arne Saknussum?
Yes, I think that's right.
Good lord, Arne Saknussum. Could it be?
Who's he?
A 16th century Icelandic alchemist who wrote in the language of scholars, Latin, which will be our first clue. Take a pen and paper and we'll figure this out.
For the next couple of hours, we tossed the letters, reading them back and forth, up and down, and back and forth, but to no avail. After a while, I began to lose interest, and drifted off.
Let's see what you've got. I love you very much, my dear Grauben. What is this?
It's,
Are you in love with Grauben?
well,
Speak up! Are you in love with my goddaughter, or are you not?
Yes, I am, sir.
Fine, good. Yes, well, good. Now that that is settled, let's apply ourselves again to the document.
We worked for another 2 hours. My head ached, and my stomach growled.
Professor?
What?
Are you not going to eat supper tonight?
No!
Yes!
I'll leave a tray for Axel outside the door. Good night.
Good night! This is the most confounding document I've ever seen. In all my years of study
I have it!
and research, I've never... What? What did you say?
I said I've got it. I've got the key.
Well, what is it?
Only if you let me eat.
All right. Come on then.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. Well,
Here, read your cryptogram again.
I have 100 times and it's meaningless.
Only if you start at the beginning. But if you read it backwards.
I've done that.
In a mirror.
Well, the very idea. Behold, if you descend into the crater of Sneffelsjökull, into which the shadow of the mountain Skartaris falls before the calends of July, you shall reach the center of the earth. I have done this, Arni Saknusum.
You see?
Dear God in heaven, what time is it?
Ah,
Martha, where the devil is my dinner? Axel, pack your bags.
why?
What do you mean, why? We're going on an expedition. We're going to the center of the earth.
The next morning, the house was alive with delivery men.
Watch my floors.
Don't worry, man.
Not you, maybe, but I worry.
Come along, Axel. Bring those boxes down. Martha, are those the Ruhmkorff coils?
If you say they are.
What are they, Professor? They look like giant fireflies.
And they operate on much the same principle. A portable electrical light run by a rechargeable battery.
Are you going to carry all this on your backs?
As much as practical. For the rest, we'll hire a guide.
Excuse me for asking, sir, but how am I to explain your absence? What will I do with the post when it comes? And what about teaching?
Leave that to me. Now, Martha, what I need from... Axel, where are you going?
I want to talk to Graben.
No one's stopping you.
In private.
Oh, I see. Carry on.
Graben, I want to ask you if that is...
Of course, Axel.
What?
I'll wait.
You will? You understand? I don't know how long I'm asking you to be faithful, but...
As long as it takes, I'll be here for you.
Oh, Graben, that's wonderful. Instead of seeking the center of the earth, I wish I was going to the center of your heart.
Axel, you conquered that a long time ago.
That's enough, you two. Do you think it's easy to get to Iceland? There's work to do. We leave at dawn. Come along.
At 5:30 the next morning, a carriage rumbled up to the house, and we loaded our equipment. Uncle said his farewells, more in the form of commands, and stepped into the carriage. Just as I was about to get in, Graben took my arm and whispered the words that will give me so much comfort in the months to come.
Go, Axel, dear, go. You are leaving your betrothed, but when you come back, you will find your wife.
In 1863, travel to Iceland was neither direct nor convenient. We sailed from the port of Hamburg on the 2nd of June. The ship was a sturdy two-masted schooner named the Valkyrie. 3 days later, we sighted the coast of Scotland, and then turned west towards the open sea. I bore the trials of the voyage fairly well. My uncle, to his great annoyance, was sick from beginning to end. By June 11th, we arrived in the Foxa Bay, Reykjavik. The professor, at last, emerged from his cabin somewhat pale and drawn.
Ale! Stand clear on the docks! Lower away!
In the distance was a huge volcano with a double peak.
There's our friend, Alex, my boy. Take a look. Take a look at Sneffels.
It's a far journey from here, Uncle.
Nonsense. The worst is over.
The worst?
Yes, we have nowhere to go but down.
That night, we stayed at an inn in the center of town. Early the next morning, I was awakened by my uncle's booming voice. He had already found a guide, a young, strapping fellow with deep blue eyes and an ingenious face. He was intelligent and athletic.
Axel, I want you to shake hands with Hans Bielecki. He's to be our guide.
How do you do?
A pleasure meeting you, Hans. I trust my uncle has told you about the expedition.
Expedition?
Hans doesn't share our language, Axel, but he's a splendid fellow who little knows what a wonderful part he will play in the future.
When did you plan to break the news, Uncle?
All in good time, my boy. First, we need his trust.
How long do you think you'll keep it if you don't tell him now?
Science works in increments, Axel. So shall we.
The rest of the day was devoted to purchasing more equipment and taking inventory.
1 thermometer reading up to 150 degrees centigrade. 1 manometer to indicate air pressures. An ordinary weather barometer would be useless at this depth. Are you getting all this down?
I'm trying.
A chronometer, 2 compasses, a smoke glass reviewing any volcanic fires we may encounter.
Volcanic fires?
2 room core coils, also 2 rifles, 3 pickaxes, a rope ladder, iron spikes, and 1,000 feet of long knotted cords. Everything we'll need for 6 months.
6 months? What about water?
We can count on underground springs along the way. Outfitted like this, there's no reason why we shouldn't go a very long way.
The next morning, we were off. It took the better part of the day for Hans to guide us to the foot of the Sneffels, a distance of 22 miles. We were traveling through interesting country, about to climb a remarkable mountain, and, at worst, descend into an extinct crater. As for there being a passage to the center of the earth, I was convinced that was pure fabrication, impossible. So, I decided to enjoy the ride.
Up! Up!
Shouldn't we rest a bit, Professor? It's been a long climb already, and...
Mister. Yeah, mister.
What's he saying?
Ah, yes, I see it, Hans. We need to keep climbing, I agree.
What? What?
Look!
When I looked down the mountain, I saw that an enormous sandstorm was moving up the mountain with great speed. For the next hour, we cowered under a small piece of canvas. Finally, at midnight, we reached the summit and took shelter inside a cave. We watched as the sun bid us good night, but not for long. In this land of the midnight sun, it was dawn just an hour later. After a hurried breakfast, we began the arduous descent into the crater. It was a cloudy day, and the climb was difficult. Suddenly, my uncle gave a shout.
Axel! Axel, come here! Come here quickly!
What?
Look, something's etched onto this boulder. It's a letter.
You're right. It's
It's a runic letter, like in the cryptogram. Can you make it out?
there's an S and
Brush the dust away.
and
What? What?
an A. Yes, it's an A.
Bravo, my boy! If ever there were 2 lovelier letters, I have never seen them. Arne Saknussemm was here.
On a Socknessum.
That's right, Hans. We're standing right where he stood 3 centuries ago. Do you have any doubts now, my boy?
None, Professor. None at all. The far wall of the crater held a formidable mystery. There were 3 distinct vents, but only one of them was the right one to take, and we wouldn't know which one that was until the shadow of Scartaris pointed the way. If the sky remained cloudy, there would be no shadow, and our expedition would have to be postponed a full year. The next 2 days were overcast, with intermittent rain. My uncle's mood was dark. But on morning of June 28th, the sun broke through the clouds and poured its rays on the crater. The blessed shadow of Scartaris shone like a beacon. By 12 o'clock noon, it rested upon the rightmost vent, pointing the way.
Thank you, Scartaris!
Farut.
That's right, Hans. Forward! Forward to the center of the earth!
By afternoon, we had reached the vent, and as I leaned over, the fascination of the voyage took hold, and I was on the point of tumbling headfirst into the vent, when a hand pulled me back. It was Hans.
Too close.
Yes, Hans. Too close for comfort.
We shall now divide the baggage into thirds. I'll take the instruments, and Hans, you take the tools. Axel, take the firearms and the rest of the provisions.
What about our clothes?
They will go down by themselves.
My uncle was fond of dramatics. He picked up the luggage and tossed it into the abyss.
Good. Now it's our turn.
We're not gonna fall like that, are we?
Not if we hold tightly onto the ropes.
That's comforting. Hans rigged an ingenious system for climbing down the ropes, which allow us to not only rest on ledges along the way, but to release the lines from above, thus never leaving any precious rope behind. After 3 hours of this arduous work, we had descended 2,800 feet into the vent.
Halt! Bottom!
Good. We've arrived.
Finally!
Yes, no doubt about it. We are most definitely at the bottom of the perpendicular chimney. Keep careful watch on the barometer, Axel. The air pressure is crucial.
Tunnel. This way.
Good, Hans. Lead on.
The tunnel, with its many crooks and crannies, was formed by the cooling of the last lava flow in 1229. The walls were blue-black in color, with pieces of quartz that sparkled in the light. After a while, I began to notice something. Professor, we haven't seen any water yet.
We will have Vatten as we go. You wait. We have Vatten.
Quite right, Hans. The underground springs just haven't broken through. Not to worry.
But we've been walking for a long time.
Indeed, according to my instruments, we have reached a depth of 10,000 feet below sea level.
Impossible. If that were the case, it should be 81 degrees Celsius. And it's barely 15 degrees.
Why must you assume the Earth's core is a fireball? Why can't there just be pockets of isolated fire beneath the surface?
Yeah, mine's cold.
That's right. Hans remind us that mines are always cold. We've already gone more than a mile deeper than any man has ever dug, and we still have a long way to go.
But, Uncle, what of the water?
All right. We shall ration ourselves. Are you satisfied?
A little late if you ask me. Soon we'll have no water left.
And no courage either?
I dared not reply. But the fact is, we did not find water, either that day or the next. On the third day, the situation was desperate. We were nearly 4 miles beneath the surface of the earth. We could neither go forward or make it back to the surface. Was this to be our grave? We rested in the darkness for a few hours to take stock. Out of weariness and despondency, I closed my eyes. Suddenly, I heard a noise. Hans was leaving us. He had taken one of the lamps with him. Where was he going? I tried to shout to my uncle, but no sound broke through my parched lips. Minutes went by, then an hour perhaps, as I lay there.
What? Axel, what is it?
I don't need to speak Icelandic to understand those words, Uncle. Hans has found water.
You've done it, Hans!
Ja, Professor Leidenbrock. Vatten in war.
Well done.
Hans had found a small trickle oozing out of the wall. There was no doubt about it. Water must be on the other side. The great Icelander, calm and self-possessed, continued to swing the pickaxe. Suddenly, a jet of water shot out of the hole.
Vatten!
Fill the canteens quickly.
Have you ever tasted anything so sweet in your life, Uncle?
Good. Yeah, good.
Hans, you are worth your weight in gold.
Yeah.
Once we've refreshed ourselves, we must move on.
Shouldn't we try to stop the flow?
No need, and besides, this water will continue to serve us. It will run downhill as a matter of course and guide us as well as refresh us along the way.
What a splendid thought.
Do my ears deceive me, or are you coming around to my way of thinking?
Not just coming around, Uncle. I've arrived. By Friday, July 6th, according to our calculations, we were 75 miles southwest of Reykjavik, and 7 miles beneath the surface of the Earth. On the 15th of July, we were 111 miles from Sneffels, and directly under the Atlantic Ocean. You know, Professor, according to the law of increasing temperature, we should be experiencing a temperature of 1500 degrees centigrade. All this rock should be melting.
And what does the thermometer say?
27.6 degrees.
Therefore, the scientists are wrong by 1,472.4 degrees.
Would you allow me to draw another conclusion?
Conclude away, my boy.
At the latitude of Iceland, the radius of the Earth is, let's say, 4,800 in round figures.
So,
at the rate we are moving, it will take us nearly 5 years to reach the center.
to blazes with your calculations. Saknussemm has done it, and where he succeeded, so shall we.
By the 7th of August, we had reached a depth of 75 miles. The tunnel was descending at a very gentle slope. I was in front with one of the Ruhmkorff lamps. My uncle and Hans had the other. We had been walking in silence for quite a while, admiring the geologic wonders. When I turned to speak to my uncle, he was nowhere to be seen. Neither was Hans. I was alone. I retraced my steps for a quarter of an hour, but saw nobody. I called out, but got no reply. I began to feel uneasy. Come, I say to myself, since there's only one path, I'm bound to find them again. Besides, I have a guarantee against losing my way. My faithful stream. I bent down to touch the water. To my horror, the stream was no longer flowing at my feet. At this point, I lost my head and dashed through the maze, crying, shouting, yelling. All of a sudden, the ground disappeared from under my feet. I felt myself falling down a vertical shaft. My head hit a rock, and I lost consciousness.
Wake up, Axel. Wake up. There's the lad.
Uncle? Hans?
God dog.
Good day, Hans, good day. Where are we?
First and foremost, we are together. You gave us quite a scare.
What time is it?
It's 11 o'clock at night, Sunday, the 9th of August, and I forbid you to ask me any more questions.
I looked around me, past my uncle and Hans. We were in a magnificent grotto, adorned with stalagmites and carpeted with fine sand. The cavern was illuminated in a half-light. Yet, strangely, there was no torch or lamp burning. A certain inexplicable gleam lit the cave. I could also hear waves breaking upon a shore and the whistling of wind. Have we returned to the surface?
No, certainly not.
Then I must be mad, because I hear the sea. How could that be?
I cannot explain it, because it's inexplicable. Come, and you shall see for yourself.
We walked to the opening of the cave, climbed a large sand dune, and there, stretched out in front of us,
Well, Axel?
an ocean!
That's right, an ocean as far as the eye can see. I shall name it after myself, the Leidenbrock Sea. I don't imagine that any other explorer is likely to dispute my claim.
Saknussemm?
Well,
But the daylight!
not Daylight, my boy, but the glow of an aurora borealis, a continuous cosmic phenomenon illuminating a cavern big enough to contain an entire ocean.
It was extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. We followed the windings of the shore for a few miles. Look, Uncle! Hot springs and forests of giant mushrooms. 40 feet high! And trees. Look at them!
Astonishing! Magnificent! Splendid! Here we have the entire flora of the secondary period of the world!
An ancient hothouse.
Yes, my boy, it is a hothouse, and it's a menagerie, too.
A menagerie?
Look at what we're walking on! These are the crushed bones of antediluvian animals.
Down here? How do you account for it?
Who knows? Alluvial soil carried below by streams, or the still elastic surface of the earth opening up and swallowing a whole colony. These are the mysteries we shall explore. Come!
Hans and I spent the next 2 days building a large raft. It was sturdy and ample. Hans saw to that.
Hans, your carpentry skills are equal to those of your guiding expertise.
The next day, we gathered our gear for the voyage. After our equipment was lashed into place, we launched the raft. We were quickly drawn out to sea. By what tide, one could only guess.
I declare this harbor should henceforth carry your name, Axel.
Pardon me, Uncle, but I have a better name to propose.
And what would that be?
Grauben. Port Grauben would look very well on the map.
Ah, the flame of love burns even at the center of the earth. Port Grauben it is.
On the morning of the following day.
A fish! Hans has caught a fish!
Ja, ein sturgeon.
Quick, set the hook.
Pull it in!
Yeah, big.
It's enormous.
Good heavens, what a catch!
Let's have a look at it. Not quite a sturgeon, but it will do for food. This fish belongs to a family which has long been extinct. It is closely related to a coelacanth, an animal that can now be found only as a fossil. Congratulations, Hans. You've just hauled up a naturalist's dream, not to mention dinner.
Suddenly, our raft was thrown, with indescribable force, high into the air.
Hold on! Ah!
Monster!
My God, look at it! It's huge! A porpoise. No, a crocodile, and what's that? A sea lizard? 40 feet long? Is that possible?
Yeah.
Who would have thought the most formidable antediluvian reptiles? Ichthyosaurus.
And the others?
A serpent with a turtle shell, the mortal enemy of the first, the plesiosaurus.
What are they doing here?
My boy, these are their waters. We are the intruders.
They were attacking each other. Hold on.
Plesiosaurus is mortally wounded. Look at its head. It's dying.
And the Ichthyosaurus is gone. Disappeared.
Survival of the fittest.
A few hours later, a storm blew of such intensity that none of us thought we would survive. For 3 days we were tossed about in seas so rough and with winds so deafening as to nearly drive us mad. We lashed ourselves to each other and to raft in desperate attempt not to be swept away.
Take another turn in the rope!
Hold on to me, Axel.
This storm can't go on forever!
Uncle, look at the compass. It's going crazy. The compass needle was spinning round and round, and then a ball of electric fire appeared right above our heads. The mast and sail vaporized in flames. The crackling fireball, half white, half blue, hovered slowly as if preparing to strike again. It was all too much to bear. My next memory is of awakening on a beach. The storm had passed and the sea was placid.
Axel? Axel! Wake up! We're safe now. We're ashore.
That's good, Uncle. May I ask just one question?
Of course you may.
When are we returning home?
Home? You mean to say you want to return before we've even arrived?
Uncle, there is a limit to every sort of ambition in this world. We cannot do the impossible. Say something,
Professor,
Uncle.
Save your passion for the expedition. You'll need it. By the way, we're back at the beginning.
What?
According to the compass, we're in the general area of Port Grauben.
How is that possible?
The storm blew us back, I think.
Professor, come!
Back to the beginning? What are we to do?
Start over again. What else? Coming, Hans?
Look! Look at this, Professor!
Oh my, it's a human skull. Axel, come here. Look at this.
What?
A human skull.
So it is. And look, over there. There's another.
Among bones. Lots of bones.
Could this be a cemetery? What was that?
Down.
What?
Down! Professor!
Through the trees. Over there.
I don't believe it. It's a herd of mastodons. Not bones, but living creatures.
Are you out of your mind? No human could brave their anger.
No human being? You're wrong, Axel. Look over there. It seems to me I see a creature similar to ourselves. A human being.
Easily 12 feet tall.
Yes.
With a spear.
Not so loud.
Could there be more than one of them?
There would have to be.
But where?
In caves, I should imagine. However, it is possible that in this subterranean world...
Don't move. He's looking at us. There. He's turned away. Let's go.
By all means.
I really do think we should leave, Uncle.
I said, by all means.
My uncle, for the first time in his life, allowed himself to be persuaded to retreat. We retired to a distance a mile away.
Axel, something baffles me.
What, Uncle?
Our instruments tell us that we have returned to Port Grauben, that the storm and its intensity drove us back to our point of departure, yet I recognize none of the rock formations. We certainly never saw any 12-foot humans when we were here last.
You're right, but still, the compass says that we are back at the beginning, back at Port Grauben. I think...
Yes, but something is not right. Something is... Oh, you dropped your knife.
No, I have my knife.
Then who is that?
Where?
Over there.
Yours?
I don't carry a knife. Perhaps it belongs to Hans. Then whose could it be?
The giant shepherd's?
Doubtful. It isn't from the Stone Age. The blade is made of steel. I would venture to say it's been on this beach for at least 200 years. Look at the way it's been pitted and blunted.
Uncle, do you think it's possible that...
Yes, and very likely he has carved his name somewhere.
Look over there, Professor. On this rock. 2 initials. And an arrow pointing in that direction along the shoreline.
Arne Saknussem. Marvelous genius. My friend, you have neglected nothing to help us mortals. Even now, after 3 centuries, your fellow humans can follow your footsteps. I shall call this Cape Saknussem. Imagine that, Axel. Even the storm set us on the right path. Do you realize that we are less than 4,000 miles from the center now?
Is that all? Why, that's nothing. Only 4,000 miles. A mere stroll. Let's be on our way. We walked along the shoreline for a while in the direction indicated by Saknussem's arrow until we discovered a cave. The opening measured 20 feet across. Inside the cave was a shaft which pitched straight up. Again, the initials AS were carved on the wall, but the passage was blocked by a massive boulder just above our reach.
Damn this rock! Even Hans can't move it.
Let's put ourselves in Saknussem's shoes. What would he have done?
He wouldn't have been stopped by a boulder, that's for sure.
Yet I don't think this boulder was here in Saknosim's day. I think it fell into this position after he passed through.
Good thinking, lad. I agree with you. So what would Saknosim have done?
If we can't remove this obstacle, then we are unworthy to reach the center of the earth as he did.
Well said, young Axel. You are an explorer after all. Fetch the pickaxes.
Pickaxes will no sooner budge this than our shoulders. We'll use gunpowder.
Excellent idea.
Within an hour, I had rigged a charge at the base of the boulder. Hans and my uncle waited on the raft, which we thought to be the safest place while I lit fuse. Everybody down!
How much did you use?
All of it!
All of it? The whole keg?
You want it to work, don't you?
Work, yes. Atomize, no!
I'll do better next time. The explosion was deafening, but what happened next was truly amazing. The cave and the shoreline around it collapsed. The explosion had caused an earthquake. An abyss had opened and we were being sucked in at a tremendous speed.
Hang on! Where to? I don't know, but we must be ready for anything. At this rate, we shall travel a very long way.
Yes, provided that nothing stops us.
We may die at any moment. We may also be saved at any moment. So let us prepare to seize the slightest opportunity.
Opportunities in an earthquake?
You are mistaken, my boy. Don't you recognize the conditions?
Of an earthquake?
I am expecting something better than that.
What do you mean?
An eruption! We are in the shaft of an active volcano, and it's the best thing that could happen to us.
The best thing?
Yes, we're being chopped up like a cannonball. You want to return to the surface? Well, hang on!
My next recollection was of my face pressed against the warm earth. We were in sunlight again. There were green grass and trees, and the fragrance of life. While we gathered ourselves up, a child appeared from nowhere.
You there, boy. What is the name of this mountain? Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Parlez-vous français? Dove siamo? Will you please answer when you're spoken to? Come si noma question oizo?
Stromboli, Stromboli, Italia!
But that's impossible. The compass, it pointed north, yet here we are south. How can we explain that fact?
Remember the fireball? And what it was doing to the compass? How it was spinning around? I believe at that moment we were at the exact center of the earth, where all the forces of nature converge.
But what about that storm and being blown back to Port Graben?
I don't think we were blown back. I think we crossed the Leidenbrock Sea.
Maybe you're right, Axel. Maybe you're right. Good work.
You mean it, Uncle?
Yes, Axel, I do. You've become a true scientist at last, and a famous one to boot.
We returned to Hamburg on the next train. Hans was already sailing back to Iceland. The word had spread of our discovery, and when we arrived home, our reception was spectacular. From that day forward, my uncle was the happiest of scientists, and I the happiest of men, for my beautiful Grauben had relinquished her position as the professor's ward and took her place in Kyrgyzstrasse, house in the dual capacity of niece and wife. I need scarcely add that her husband was yours truly, and that I published a book based on our adventure entitled A Journey to the Center of the Earth. And perhaps, someday, if it ever becomes possible to record the human voice, I shall read my work for posterity and the enlightenment of future generations. Alright, a little more dinosaur. Okay, who's last time?